It's kind of dark, kind of hard to see. I've already given him his puppy Prozac. Oh man.
We did our first official cruise under the name Limitless, and we took a very short cruise, so this was a neat opportunity for practice. We came to Chesapeake City. Chesapeake City puts on some really cool fireworks, and so we're going to watch the fireworks from the boat. So supposedly they let them off literally like right over this basin where we're docked. So what do you think of our short cruise today?
It was peaceful, very peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was a little concerned because, you know, haven't anchored in a while, and went pretty smooth.
It's amazing. Yeah, we've been, it's been a little while since we've been out on the water, so yeah, it's funny how you just got to dust those off, because we're not doing them for the very first time, but it's like, wait a minute, what did I do?
Yeah, we haven't done it in a while.
Is it the rope go on the left side, the right side, starboard side, port side, bow, stern?
And then a little floating football thing. We lost it. We're supposed to tell people that our line is there, and
hopefully you connected it and it's still connected to the anchor somewhere sunk. I don't know.
Yeah, we gotta watch a YouTube video on how you're really supposed to do that one.
Yeah, we'll find out. Anyway.
We did it before, we just don't remember what we did.
So now we'll enjoy the, it's pretty late in the evening here, so sun's going down on the other side here. We were just hanging the shades on the aft deck.
Sweating.
So, yeah, time for some drinks, cool down, a little relaxation, some dinner, and yeah. Another step to confidence building. You enjoying the craziness?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice because, you know, in the past you're out with the crowd for these things, and I hated that. Always hated that. The traffic, the everything. This is nice because we got here early. We're the only ones out here. We're nice and quietly tucked in on our boat, and there's a lot going on around us, but it's still quiet here. And Caitlin's happy. And
really, a lot going on around us? I have no idea what you're talking about.
You see a little bit of everything, that's
yes.
for sure.
All right, back in the engine room for our next project, and this is a bit of a repair. As you may recall in one of the earlier videos, we talked about going into the engine room and finding some water coming in through the port shaft. After further diagnosis, basically two things causing the water to come in through the shaft at a much faster rate than it should be. One is there's a pipe strap that's around the outside of the stuffing box that holds it all together. There's actually two that hold that in there. One of those had busted. I think it rusted or rotted through and busted. But it was just coincidence that happened at the same time, or I don't know, maybe it happened at the same time, maybe it didn't. Looking at the bolts, or the nuts that were tightening on the bolts. So we basically nursed it. Once we noticed it, we basically nursed it all the way north to Delaware. Ran into a problem. The nuts, we couldn't find a replacement nut. Went to Lowe's, went to the typical hardware stores, and looking for a stainless steel nut, and could not find one that would fit. So after trying multiple metric, American standard, standard American sizes, just nothing was fitting. I'm like, oh my gosh, why just be something that's so custom that I'm never gonna find, and I'll have to come up with some other rigged solution to figure this out. What happened is the nut actually broke. If you can believe that, the nut actually broke, and I'll show that to you here in a second. And so therefore we had to find a replacement. So let's take a look. All right, here we go. So this is the port shaft. This is the shaft here coming off of the transmission and the port engine. The shaft goes here. Here are the two bolts. There's one bolt here on the inboard side, and there's a bolt on the outboard side. These are the two flanges those flanges squeeze together with that bolt, and inside of this space here, you know, close to the shaft, is that Vortex material. The other piece, those pipe straps, actually there's like 4 pipe straps on that that cover there. One of those had broken. That one we fixed right away. But the other was the bolt. Let me show you, or not the bolt, but the nut on the stuffing box. Let me show you a closer look. All right, so this here is the nut, and as you can see, it is cracked and broke. So basically left it in place there on our trip and just watched it and just tightened this lock nut here, tightened it up to make sure that it was still tight enough and strong enough before the rest of it broke. But yeah, kind of crazy. Next project is installing Nebo. Nebo is a really neat device, a part of, and the AGLCA sponsors it. What's super neat about Nebo is it'll track your trips, so that from a log keeping perspective, you know, where you've been, how many miles you traveled, and so forth. It automatically keeps all that, sends you a report via email. The other really cool part about it is the social networking aspect of it. Through this transmitter that I'm getting ready to mount, this will basically put out there, you know, to the level that I'm comfortable with, you know, our position. So it'll help other loopers that were around. They can communicate with us and we can communicate with them, know who they are. And so it's a really great way to connect with other loopers. It's also a good way for our friends and family that are tracking us real time. You know, I'll be able to provide a link to this, and they'll be able to see where we're at real time and help track and track us that way. So what I have to do though, so this device comes pretty easy install. The device comes with a SIM card inside. All you had to do, this cover was off. You had to connect the battery inside. Once I connected the battery, it automatically started transmitting. So there's a red light inside that just beeps, and it'll start tracking you immediately. The next step is I have to mount this into a location and connect the other end to a 12-volt battery source, so that battery is always working. So I found a 12-volt battery source with the horn. So as long as I got the circuit breaker for the horn on, this will be getting power. The other neat part is that there's another wire here. There's a white wire that I will also connect to the tachometer, which is right above the horn. The nice part about that is this device senses movement, so that's what starts the automatic tracking of each and every journey. Sometimes when you start off slow, there may be a delay in that. Well, by connecting this white wire, as soon as the engines kick on, that white wire will sense that through the tachometer, and it'll automatically begin tracking my trip at that point. So here we go. So I got to mount this inside the cabinet, connect the wires to a 12-volt source, the monitoring wire to the tachometer, and we should be good to go. On to the app at that point. Let's get started. Here we go. So it's the Nebo tracker here. The wires come in, tie wrapped a little bit of the excess there, wrapped up, came up over and around You can see one of the tie wraps here comes across. There was another tie wrap there. And then the two lines that go right into the horn here, and then the white indicator that goes up into the back of the tachometer. So that's the wiring connection. So once I figured out that, you know, it was 12 volts there and which side was positive, which side was negative, it was yeah, pretty straightforward. Just tedious getting my fat fingers up in there. but we got it. We are in the Bohemia River in Maryland. Last night we spent the night in Chesapeake City. Got to, we anchored there, watched the fireworks last night. Got up this morning and actually slept in a bit, so it was kind of nice. I slept in a bit, and then we traveled, it's about 10 nautical miles to the Bohemia River, where there's a winery here, and they're letting off fireworks here at this winery. So yeah, we're excited to see those. All the boaters we've been talking to say the Chesapeake City one's pretty cool, but these ones here are even better. I mean, there's probably maybe 100 boats here spread across just off of the coast here where this winery's at. So it was supposed to be a pretty neat time. So yeah, we'll watch the fireworks tonight, and then yeah, head back tomorrow and catch the tide when the tide's nice. Meanwhile, big first in our trip at Chesapeake was pulling the dinghy out and taking Bentley to and from, doing his thing and going in and out of Chesapeake City when we were doing our tooling around town. And so it's our first time actually using the dinghy, and so that was kind of neat. And a little nervous at first because we're still getting used to driving. Is this left or is this right? Is this port? Is this starboard? Yeah, it's a feel thing. It's hard to figure it out, but we're doing it slowly, and just like anything else, slow is pro. We are camped out here, getting ready to watch some fireworks. Maybe. That sky looks pretty ominous. It is gnarly too. I think the good news is it's supposed to just miss us here and roll through here in the next hour or so. So we got several hours before fireworks, so I think we have plenty of time to get those in. But thankfully, we are safely at anchor. Good anchor spot, good holding. We backed down on it pretty hard, so make sure that we were holding with, especially with all these other boats around. So I'm feeling comfortable. And yeah, if it does rain here, or we do get a thunderstorm here, we'll batten down the hatches and ride it out.
Wait.
You can do it! Yes! Ah, yes! Escape it. It is raining, but the good news is it's raining now and should pass before the fireworks start. So it was a quick mad dash to zip down all the ice and glass so that we stay nice and dry. So now we're just hanging out on the aft deck here and watching the rain. Nice and relaxing. All right, so the night of the Bohemian River, thunderstorm, craziness. You saw what happened leading up to it. There were clouds, they got pretty dark, They were expected to go north of where we were at. They didn't. They came right through where we were parked with about 200 other boats and what was supposed to be this amazing fireworks display. We had an awesome anchorage along with, like I said, about 200 other boats ready to watch this awesome fireworks show. And right as it turned dark, this storm came in and sat over top of us. And I've never seen lightning quite like this before. There was lightning, literally, we could see it striking the ground all over us. I probably saw about 15 lightning strikes hit the ground or hit something close by to us. And we're in a boat on the water. It was scary. It was scary. On top of the winds, we started dragging anchor and had no idea we were dragging anchor because we're looking at the other boats around us. Well, the other boats around us were moving too.
Little boats were capsizing. I think somebody was on fire or got struck by lightning. I don't know. It was insane. It was an insane night. The firework trucks were struck by lightning.
Channel 16, which is the emergency/hailing channel, that's how you hail the Coast Guard if you need anything, was nonstop reports of people calling in distress to the Coast Guard. Poor Coast Guard couldn't do anything
People were
at
in
that
the water.
point. People were in the water, boats, there were boats sinking. We saw a dinghy as the wind was at its height. We saw a dinghy in true, like, what's the name of that movie with Helen Hunt? Twister. In true Twister fashion, this dinghy come rolling right across the bow of our boat. And I'm not talking like this little tiny raft that you blow up that you get from Toys R Us. I'm talking about a full-blown dinghy, like 6-7 person dinghy, tumbling across the front of our boat. It was crazy. The winds, you couldn't see, you couldn't hear. The wind was so loud on top of our bimini, we couldn't hear. Thankfully, Sherry had this awesome idea of, let's just put our headphones on, because I'm yelling at her, I can't see behind us, because we ended up turning the engines on to make sure that we could control the boat for as much as we could, because we were sliding, we were moving anchor. Thankfully, there was a boat next to us that saw us moving. They were flashing their lights at us and yelling at us. We couldn't tell what they were saying. All we could hear was yelling and their lights. And that clued us to, okay, well, let's make sure that we're not actually moving. And we looked at the GPS and our chart plotter, and yep, we were moving. As we were moving, I started the engines to make sure that I could control our movement to some degree. But I needed to know what was around us, and I couldn't see behind us. So as I'm yelling at Sherry, what's behind us? What's beside us? She decided, oh, let's grab our headphones so at least we could hear each other, because the rain was hitting the boat and the bimini so hard that you just couldn't hear anything. That helped tremendously and probably helped save us. In that process, 2 boats collided in front of us. They collided and locked together, and they couldn't separate. We could hear the conversation with the Coast Guard over the radio that there's 2 boats that just collided. They're locked up. They can't separate. And lo and behold, those are 2 boats that are right in front of us that are drifting now into us. I'm now got the controls. I'm in full reverse. I'm not going anywhere. My anchor finally hooks, catches. So I can't back up anymore. There's nothing I can do. And I don't know. I mean, it was literally feet.
I was like standing. They were within like 5 feet, because I just thought, our trip is done. We're done. We're done before we start. We're done. Last minute, they broke away and just kind of drifted off, and
we couldn't believe it happened.
I know.
We couldn't believe it happened. We were so close. I could see the people, and as I'm saying, you couldn't see anything, but that boat was so close. Those 2 boats connected together were so close. I could see the people moving around on the boat, and it just.
I
was
I
like,
could see them kind of freaking out because they were coming up to another boat. So that was that close.
in the middle of all of this, what can be worse? An ear-piercing tone from your mobile phone saying that there is a tornado warning, which didn't surprise me, as strong as the winds were, and as much as the winds were pushing every boater around, pushing us around, and you could hear the howling. It was eerie. We made it through, thankfully. Nothing hit us. We didn't hit anything. We dodged a lot of things, a lot of other boats. We did some things right. There were some things that we would definitely do differently. So a couple things we did right. Number one, as soon as we recognized that we were moving, we took control of the boat. We started the engines. We turned on our running lights. Make sure the spotlight was capable of coming on. I didn't want to blind anybody with the spotlight, but I did use it occasionally just to turn it on and off, just flashing it, just so that other people knew where I was at. Number two, we stayed calm through this whole thing and made smart decisions, trying to figure out what is it that we need to do to make sure that we survive this evening.
Because neither one of us panicked. Neither one of us yelled, screamed, other than trying to hear each other before the headsets. But we both remained very calm. I think we're both in survivor mode. It's just like you just do what you got to do to make it through this crazy storm.
What I would do different is I would set my anchor alarm in two places. One on the app on my phone, which I always do. Once we got to that anchorage earlier in the day, it was beautiful outside. I set the anchor alarm on my mobile phone. Well, then we got the dinghy down and we wanted to go for a little bit of a joyride with the dinghy. But as soon as you take that dinghy 50 feet away from the boat, the anchor alarm goes off, and that's annoying as all get out. I turned it off, and I did not reset it when we returned to the boat. Mistake number two is I can set a marker on my chart plotter whenever I drop anchor, and I can see how the boat moves around that point at any given time. Had I done that, I'd have known pretty quickly, without the assistance of somebody else yelling and flashing their lights at us, that we were dragging anchor. That I would definitely do differently, and we've since then definitely have done that, set both and made sure that both are on at all times. At the end of the day, I'm proud of us. I think we did good stuff. I think we learned something, and there are some things I'm sure in that process that we do have to learn. So if there's other tricks that you know from your own experiences that you'd like to share with us, please throw it in the comments. We'd love to see those. Some of those will probably go, yeah, we should have done that. Or two, yeah, we would have done that, but just didn't have the opportunity, whatever the case may be. But yeah, it'll help us in our steep learning curve, and hopefully help some of you too as you look forward at your potential boating adventures in the future as well. Thanks all. Have a great night.